Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So many moons ago, I remember watching Planet Earth with the incredible David Attenborough and learning about this both equally fascinating and disgusting parasitic fungus called cordyceps. It invades the bodies of insects and affects their behavior in some very strange ways. In bullet ants, for example, it directs the ant to climb up as high as possible and then grip the stem of the plant with its mandible in like a death grip. And then the fruiting body of the cordyceps erupts from the ant's head. Yeah, in like a science fiction kind of way. And I'm going to warn you guys right now, if you are of the squeamish sort, this video may not be for you. This is what happens over the span of a couple weeks from a cordyceps infection. And at the end, spores burst from the end of the stalk and can kill any ant nearby. And I remember watching this thinking, first, gross, and second, this would be such a good idea for a horror movie. And it turns out I was not alone in this thought. HBO's The Last of Us, don't worry, not going to talk any spoilers, just about the premise, features a world where our heroes fight to survive in a zombie apocalypse. But this zombie apocalypse is not brought on by a fictional virus. It is the real-life fungus cordyceps, which takes over the minds and bodies of human beings and makes them want to spread the fungus to the uninfected. And again, this fungus and its methodology, totally real. So in the vein of my scary science videos, let's dive in and talk about the science behind The Last of Us. Cordyceps, properly known as Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, is an insect pathogenic fungus that was discovered in 1859 by British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace. It's mostly found in tropical forest ecosystems, but it doesn't just affect ants. Pretty much any type of insect, spiders, moths, dragonflies, can be infected. But it is alternatively known as the zombie ant fungus, and it is pretty easy to see why. A cordyceps spore lands on and infects its host typically when it's out foraging for food. It then starts to spread its mycelia, or tendrils, throughout the insect's body. Those tendrils replace the host's internal tissues, feed off its nutrients, and eventually takes over the insect's central nervous system. In the beginning, the ant might act normal, but eventually it stops participating in the foraging efforts of the colony. It doesn't communicate well with its nestmates and eventually starts acting very hyperactive. The insect is then basically taken over by the fungus in terms of behavior, doing everything for the good of the fungus, i.e. climbing to a very high place for optimal spread, rather than what the host wants to do. And once the insect is fully paralyzed or dead, the cordyceps fungus erupts out of the insect's body, doesn't necessarily have to be the head, with a fruiting body, which is the reproductive structure of the cordyceps. This fruiting body then bursts and spreads its spores to other insects of the same species. And this infection cycle goes on and on and on. Infection, climbing, death, bursting. So, as you can see, pretty zombie-esque. Of course, the ants are not already dead when they are acting this way, so it is different in that sense. But I think the aspect of not being in control of your body and what it is doing is the obvious biggest parallel. And apparently Neil Druckmann, the creator of the video game The Last of Us, saw the same documentary I did and thought, what if this were to happen to humans? And what you get is a pretty disgusting zombie outbreak that has a lot of imagery that will look very familiar to you if you've read up on cordyceps. But is such a thing even possible? I mean, what would happen to a human being if they ingested a cordyceps spore? Well, we actually have a fair amount of data on that because human beings eat cordyceps all the time. In fact, the fruiting body from cordyceps is a fungus that has long been used in traditional Chinese medicine. It is thought to help boost energy and strength, fight fatigue, and enhance kidney function. It is eaten raw, cooked, dried, and thus far the zombie reports have been pretty low. But the truth is pretty much everything in the human body is very different from the insects that this fungi normally infects, including our physiology, nervous tissue, and body temperature. So even if the fungi were able to cause an infection, what is needed for the fungus to do such a precise manipulation is simply not there. These fungi have evolved to manipulate specific insect hosts over millions of years. They're not really generalists. Not that there aren't terrible fungal infections that human beings can suffer from. Obviously, we know that's not true, but luckily, cordyceps is not one of them. So hopefully this abates some of your nightmares, as it did mine, unless you are watching The Last of Us, in which case your nightmares are all your own fault. I myself have not watched The Last of Us yet, but I have played the video game, and it is pretty terrifying. I definitely remember seeing the clickers for the first time and going, wait a second, I've seen this before, which is kind of a weird thing to think. And hats off to nature once again for just being incredibly elaborate with all its life forms. I mean, spores coming out of heads and then bursting. Wow, nature. Wow.
Wow. Right?
Yeah,
great.
Amazing.
Let's get a shoe shine.
Okay, that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Sorry if it was gross.